It's a sin to kill a mockingbird.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
And welcome to another episode of Cobbs Corner, your one-stop shop for all things TV, film, and pop culture. If this is your first time listening, then welcome, and to my returning listeners, welcome back. This is the 99th episode of Cobbs Corner. We are so close to that big 100th episode. I've been advertising it for the past couple of episodes if you've been listening. So it's the 99th episode of Cobbs Corner, so thank you so much for tuning in. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you're here with your host, me, Morgan Cobbs. You're here at Cobbs Corner, so thank you for joining me on this episode as we journey to the fictional town of Macomb, Alabama, in the year 1933 with number 25, To Kill a Mockingbird. Stay tuned. So I hope that you all have been enjoying your summer vacation. I realized that my last episode 98, we did Psycho, and I realized that episode it's been a little while since that episode. I think that episode came out like early July, and here we are. I'm actually recording this on Saturday, August the 23rd. So been a little while, but I hope you guys in my absence have been maybe taking this opportunity to go back and listen to some of my older episodes, maybe go back and listen to the other AFI films that I've done, the Change Your Life series, the Marvel movies that I started out on, and also taking time to, go on vacation, spend time with your loved ones. We're all about health and wellness. We're all about spending time with, friends and family here on Cobbs Corner. So I hope you guys have been taking some family time, as I have actually been taking some family time. I went on vacation to the Dominican Republic. Had a great time. Had a great time in Puerto Plata. We stayed at an all-inclusive resort. We rode on the ATVs, and yeah, it was just a fun week getaway. I was out of the country for a week. This is country number 6 for me. As of the recording of this podcast, I've been to 6 countries now. I've been to Jamaica, Bermuda, I've been to Canada 3 separate times. I've been to London, England, so the United Kingdom, Federated States of Micronesia, that's 5, and now the Dominican Republic, so 6. I've been to 6 different countries, and I've been to, I guess you could say, the West Indies. I feel like that's a part of like Central America. I'm not sure what continent that is really. But Oceania and Europe, I guess those are the only 2 like other continents I've been to. Because Canada's part of North America. But it's been a fun summer, and I'm excited. I'm excited to get back into the swing of things, to get back to Cobbs Corner, get back to this AFI series that I've been doing for like a million years now. Okay, it's like, all right, come on, let's go, come on. Like, what we doing? Like 100 movies, let's hit the ground running. So yes, that is what we came to do. I know last summer I said it's full speed ahead, and it is still full speed ahead. All right, it's full speed ahead. Bear with me. I'm not gonna say officially like what the upload schedule is or anything like that because I don't want to make promises that I can't keep. But summer is almost over, unfortunately, and kids are about to go back to school. So I hope you guys enjoyed your summer, or are enjoying the last couple days of summer, as I'm recording this in late August, and we still have like 1 week left of August, and so this might be everybody's last week of summer vacation, or if you're in college, happy first week of the fall semester, or for the rest of us who are just working folks, there's no real change. We don't get the summer off. We just got to keep working. So Yeah. In the world of entertainment, I would like to, before we officially, kick off this episode, I gotta say, huge R.I.P. to two icons. The first of which, Malcolm-Jamal Warner. He unfortunately died while going for a swim with his family. He was in Costa Rica, and he drowned at the very young age of 54. I think it was the comedian Godfrey. He said on a podcast once, I think when he was on the Pierre's Panic Room podcast, he said that black people, we all need to know how to read, which is for sure. We all gotta read, because there's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of information out there. We all need to know how to drive, because there's a lot of roads. That's how you get from place to place. We all gotta know how to drive, and we all have to know how to swim, because you never know. Swimming could save your life or someone else's. So, on behalf of the entire Cobbs Corner family, I would like to, extend our deepest condolences, our thoughts and prayers with the friends and family of Malcolm-Jamal Warner. Again, 54 years young. Black men in Hollywood are dying too young. It's not a coincidence, all right? And it's not a conspiracy theory either. It's the evidence is right there. So, we gotta keep ourselves healthy, keep ourselves safe. Because I'm trying to be here for a long time. All right, I'm trying to review every single movie that there is. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, he was on shows like The Cosby Show, The Resident, Suits, A Different World, Read Between the Lines. Just going through some of the TV shows that he was on. I remember he played on the show. There's a show I watched when I was in Micronesia called the People versus OJ. People versus OJ. It was like a short mini series on FX, and he played. I think his name was AC. There was OJ and then AC. I can't think of the actual football player's name, but AC, who was the one driving the white Bronco during OJ's chase, when OJ was on the run. But yeah, movie wise, he was in Shot, The Tuskegee Airmen, Drop Zone, the Father Clements story, Restaurant. So yeah, he has been around. He's had a very successful acting career, even though he was only on this earth for 54 years. So again, my deepest condolences to the friends and family of Malcolm-Jamal Warner. May God be satisfied with our brother. And then on the, I guess, semi-controversial stance, but I'm gonna say it anyway. R.I.P. Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan. He died of a heart attack. He was 71. Although, as of the recording of this podcast, now there's new articles coming out that there's suggestions that there was some medical malpractice. We don't know for sure. Again, these are just speculations as of the recording of this podcast. I don't want to spread any unconfirmed rumors. As far as we know, he died of a heart attack at 71, which I still think is relatively young. Hulk Hogan. First I gotta, start off with the positive. I feel like pro wrestling would not be where it is today. The WWE would not be doing premium live events overseas. We're about to have Clash in Paris next week. We just had a very first two-night SummerSlam with over 100,000 attendees over the course of 2 nights. I feel like that doesn't happen without Hulk Hogan, without Hulkamania. Now, I understand that's before my time, and that's been referred to as like the golden age of wrestling in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, Hulk Hogan, he elevated the brand of the WWF at the time and pro wrestling as a whole to a new standing in the zeitgeist and in pop culture. He elevated that brand. He elevated pro wrestling into what it is today. And I feel like just given his record, given his influence, given like everything that he did for the business, that alone is worthy of his name in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. You know, that's the good. But I also have to, hold him accountable. And I think I've even I even touched on this when I had Preston and Easy Blues on. It was either the Pulp Fiction episode or the Do the Right Thing episode. And we talked about how Hulk Hogan did stop Jesse the Body Ventura from unionizing, and because a bunch of the wrestlers, they wanted to unionize, and Hulk Hogan was the one who put a stop to that and essentially snitched to Vince McMahon. I mean, check out the Mr. McMahon documentary on Netflix if you haven't already. That's a very brutally honest, very open narrative, a very open documentary about Mr. McMahon and who he was. But Hulk Hogan appears in that documentary as well. Hogan, he was the one who had defended Vince McMahon and saved his life, as McMahon was facing time in prison because of the steroids scandal. I mean, all the steroids are being distributed behind the scenes, and many stars that are no longer with us, like Mr. Perfect, like I can remember in 2014 we lost Ultimate Warrior, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Jimmy Snuka, and I say all these names with respect, Macho Man Randy Savage, and a lot of these guys died young. A lot of these guys did not make it past. A lot of these guys didn't make it past 80, and it's sad. I mean, again, we're all about health and wellness here at Cobbs Corner, and Hulk Hogan also has been heard using the N-word. Like you said, I would never want my daughter to date an N-word, with a hard R. So I mean, he was a very racist individual, and couple times I think he might have even said in the interview a couple times that he is in fact a racist individual. So if anything, I mean, my heart goes out to I also have to acknowledge that this man was a father. He was a husband, a father. So I mean, just his wife and kids, my heart goes out to them. My heart goes out to his family, and his immediate family, those who have been affected by his passing. No, he was not perfect. Nobody is. No celebrity is. And I think that, and I think that with Hulk Hogan, we have to, and with him, and also with every historical figure, you gotta give credit where credit is due, while also holding them accountable for their actions and accepting the fact that this person was no angel. I always use the examples, and again, this is just my faith coming into play. For myself as a Christian, I believe that none of us are without sin. Let the first one of us who claims to be without sin throw the first stone. The first one of us that claims to have never sinned a day in our lives, to have lived a sinless life, live a perfect life, throw the first stone. I'll wait. No, Hulk Hogan was not a perfect individual. Yes, he said and did some shady stuff. But we also have to recognize that pro wrestling and WWE would not be where it is today without his help, without his influence. And that God is the final judge. God is the final judge, jury, and executioner. He is the only perfect judge. He is the only real judge, the only real, all-powerful, perfect judge. He is the final judge and jury in all of our lives. In the same way that we seek to judge and cancel celebrities and judge and cancel other people in general, those are the same ways, those are the same metrics, the same standards at which God will judge you and cancel you and convict you. In the same way we want to convict others. We want to address the plank in our brother's eye, but we don't want to remove the speck from our eye. We want to put the cart before the horse. We want to say, oh, look at this person. They did this thing, that thing. Like, oh, this person's here's a recording leaked by Access Hollywood from 20 years ago of this person saying that he was going to, touch women inappropriately or whatever. And I'm not defending, all right, those actions. Don't get it twisted, okay? I'm not defending, Hulk Hogan, using the N-word and, all the shady stuff that he did behind the scenes. I'm not defending that. But I also recognize that nobody is perfect, and that, you can even take it back to Bible times. I mean, David is remembered for defeating Goliath, but he also slept with Bathsheba. It's like, I always think back to that scene in The Dark Knight where they're having dinner with Harvey Dent, and he uses the example of like Julius Caesar, and how when enemies were at their gates, all the people of Rome, they threw out any and all rules and regulations about due process and, policy and politics, and they threw their faith behind one man. They threw all their faith behind one man to defend them. When the enemies are at their gates, they said, we are putting our faith in one man alone to protect us, to keep us alive. But the last man that they put their faith in, the last man that they put that faith in, his name was Julius Caesar, and they stabbed him 27 times. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. That's very, very true. But I do want to transition into the next into the next topic, but I just really needed to get that off my chest, and one last time again, R.I.P. to the great Hulk Hogan. And speaking of pro wrestling, as of the recording of this podcast, the most recent PLE that we have had in the world of WWE was SummerSlam, the aforementioned SummerSlam, which had 2 nights, not just one, but two nights. Very historic night. It was very exciting. It was live from It was live from MetLife Stadium, and it was hosted by Cardi B, and it was one wild night. I mean, I'm just gonna quickly, go through the results. I got the complete results, courtesy of WWE.com. Complete SummerSlam 2025 Saturday, SummerSlam Saturday results. Roman Reigns and Jey Uso defeated Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. Roman Reigns with his Ula Fala, the original tribal chief, and Bronson Reed as, he calls himself like the tribal thief, and his Shula Fala, he stole the sneakers of Roman Reigns, and so, but Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, yeet, they won. 4 letters, 1 word, yeet. Not stop, yeet. Alright. He was introduced by Drewski. And Sami Zayn defeated Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross, him being, I think his whole mantra is like the devil you know, and I think with that match we saw, Sami Zayn, he was tempted to turn to the dark side, but he said nah, and he finally defeated Karrion Kross once and for all. Probably won't be hearing from him anytime soon. We had what I feel like was a bit of an underwhelming match. We had the WWE Women's Championship match between Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill. I feel like that match was over kind of quickly. Of course, Tiffany Stratton won. It is still Tiffy time. It's been Tiffy time since January 3rd. I think it was the last Friday Night SmackDown before the Raw Netflix premiere. So, yes, it is still Tiffy time. Tiffany Stratton, as far as I know, is still the women's world. Well, still the WWE Women's Champion, not the Women's World Champion. That's a different title, which we'll get to in a minute. Now, she is still the Women's Champion. Congratulations, Tiffany Stratton. Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul Of course, they defeated Jelly Roll and Randy Orton. I feel like all of us were rooting for Jelly Roll. His wife was in the audience. I was rooting for my man Jelly Roll. And, platinum selling country artists. But, man, he just really, really, really took a beating. And who knows, maybe, like I know earlier this year we had Pat McAfee versus Gunther at Backlash in St. Louis. And then we just had Jelly Roll and Randy Orton team up against Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul at SummerSlam. Maybe this is a new thing where they're going to have, like, celebrities have their WWE debut. So I'm liking kind of the way that things are moving. I just wish that we would have the WWE logo on the mat and not all the sponsors. Whole nother conversation. Logan Paul, Drew McIntyre won. They won the fight. Jelly Roll and Randy Orton won the night. CM Punk. Ooh, yeah, the ending of night one, the ending of SummerSlam Saturday was wild. I don't think any of us saw it coming. CM Punk defeated Gunther to win the World Heavyweight Championship. I was not expecting that. But then what I really was not expecting was what happened afterward. Alright, Seth Rollins cashed in. We forgot Seth Rollins, who, as far as we knew, was injured. Yep, as far as we know, Seth Rollins was injured. He had I think hurt his knee. So he was injured, and then he, soon as CM Punk won the championship, Seth Rollins comes out and he's on crutches. And I think at first he says, like, "Oh, I'll see you. I'll see you soon," or whatever. And then as he's turning around and he's on the crutches, he eventually stands up straight and lets him go, and then takes the briefcase over to the ref, cashes in on CM Punk, and he wins the championship. He is our new World Heavyweight Champion. He is our new WWE World Champion. Seth freaking Rollins. Burn it down. It's a huge win for the Vision. The Vision, which is Seth freaking Rollins, Big Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, along with WWE Hall of Famer, the Oracle, Paul Heyman. So, that concludes night one. I was not expecting that. Night two, straight out the gate, we got Women's World Championship triple threat. We got Naomi versus Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. Naomi successfully defended her championship, although she, in recent days, she has recently had to abandon the championship. She announced that she and Big Jim are expecting. She has announced that she is pregnant. She is having a baby. And but she is also in that promo reminded us that I'm leaving behind this championship. You guys do whatever you want for the next 9 months and some change, but I am coming back with a vengeance. I'm coming back and I'm taking my title back. So, but congratulations, Naomi, aka Trinity Fatu, and Big Jim, Jimmy Uso. Congratulations to the two of you. So as for what's going to happen with Clash in Paris, I'm not 100% sure yet. Because I know Stephanie Becerra was supposed to... She has the number one contenders spot. She was supposed to face off against Naomi at Clash in Paris, but who knows what's going to happen now. The Tag Team Championship. The 6-pack TLC match. I love how they had the Hardy Boys in the audience. The Hardy Boys, they are tag team royalty. All right, everything they've done from WWE to TNA to those guys, tag team royalty. The Hardy Boys, the lead. But the Wyatt Six, they came back and they drew past the 5 other tag teams. Who they had? They had the Street Profits, Wyatt Six, I think it was DIY, Motor City Machine Guns, Fraxium, and like one other team. It'll come to me as I'm reading through this article. And Andrade and Rey Fenix were the 16. Yeah. This next match was brutal. Women's Intercontinental Championship, Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria. No disqualifications, no countouts, and this was a last chance match. This was Lyra Valkyria's last chance to challenge Becky Lynch for the Intercontinental Championship. And as long as Becky Lynch is champion, Lyra Valkyria cannot challenge for the championship. So this was an all or nothing type of match. And Becky Lynch won. I mean, it was a brutal, street fight, either street fight or Extreme Rules match. I think the official terminology is street fight. Correct me if I'm wrong, WWE aficionados, but yeah, Becky Lynch is now the Women's Intercontinental Champion, and I think it's great how over the last year or so, and this has been, and they brought this up in the Netflix series WWE Unreal, how they've now that there's an official women's division, they have had to create secondary titles for the women. Like how on the men's side you have the World Championships, you have the WWE Undisputed Championship, you have the Undisputed WWE Championship, you have the WWE World Championship. You have those two world titles, but then you have the mid card titles. You have the Intercontinental Championship, and I think the lowest one is the United States Championship. So now on the women's side, they have the Women's World Championship, the Women's Championship. Just last year, Chelsea Green, she became the inaugural Women's United States Champion, and then earlier this year, Lyra Valkyria, she won the tournament for the inaugural Women's Intercontinental Championship. And I think she beat. I think the finals was Lyra Valkyria versus Dakota Kai, and Lyra Valkyria won. So, but now Becky Lynch, she is our Women's Intercontinental Championship, Women's Intercontinental Champion, and Lyra Valkyria cannot challenge for the championship as long as Becky is champion. The Samoan Werewolf, Jacob Fatu, he is super entertaining to watch. I think his United States title run was way too short. I think they should have given him at least one or two more title defenses. But the new United States champion is Solo Sikoa. He has now defended his championship, I think, twice. Once against Jimmy Uso, and now second time against Jacob Fatu, and inside of a steel cage. It was a steel cage match for the United States Championship. Solo Sikoa defeated his cousin Jacob Fatu inside of a steel cage. All gas, no brakes. Of course, with the help of his MFTs, Tongaloa and I think Tamatonga. I don't know, there's a lot of T's. Yeah. His MFT's My Family Tree. Intercontinental Championship match, AJ Styles versus Dominic Mysterio. Dominic Mysterio is kind of, I guess you could say, heel. I guess you could say maybe he's patterned his whole look and persona a bit after Eddie Guerrero. God rest his soul. And yeah, we're finally seeing Dominic Mysterio actually defend his title, because they say the Intercontinental Championship is the workhorse title. That is, that is the workhorse title, and I think it's great to see Dominic Mysterio actually defending his title. And nice to see AJ Styles still able to throw down and do all his flips and tricks, all while being in his 40s. I think it was Charlotte Flair had said, I think it was in an interview in Sports Illustrated, she said in some interview recently how there's a lot of ageism in the WWE on the women's side. Like how you look at the men's side and they're still pushing guys like, you know, AJ Styles, who's in his 40s, John Cena, who's 47. He's having a whole farewell tour, and he's like, I want to say either 47, 48. He's late 40s. Cody Rhodes is, I think, 40 years old. And then they even had a retirement match for Goldberg, who, I mean, Goldberg is like entirely before my time. I don't remember him from when I was watching wrestling as a kid, like, because I know he was a part of the WCW. I think he came over from WCW, which is also where Booker T started out. There was the Monday Night Wars. I remember just watching from the Mr. McMahon documentary that there was the Monday Night Wars. There was Monday Night Raw versus WCW Nitro, and then at some point WCW, they just started to fall off, and they were eventually bought out by the WWE, and Goldberg was one of the wrestlers who came over from WCW into the WWE, and he just went out on his back on Saturday night's main event, but the man was like 58 years old. Okay. On the women's side, it seems like they're really pushing the younger talent. They're pushing the Roxanne Perez, who I think is the youngest female wrestler in the WWE. She's 23 years old. So you got the Roxanne Perez's, the Lyra Valkyrias, the Baileys, Becky Lynch, Alexa Bliss. You know, you got all the stars who are, but the majority of the stars that they're pushing are under 35, are under the age of 35. You know, are between the ages of, well, I guess you could say 23 and 35. And Charlotte Flair, she's about to be 40, and she said how like she's like one of the few stars like above 35. It's like there's her, there's Nikki Bella, who has returned, Trish Stratus, Trish Stratus, who I think had a great match at Evolution, and I think it's great to have an all women's PLE once a year, when you have Evolution, and we realize how much the women's division has grown. But Charlotte Flair was right on the money when she said how, you don't see the men's side, you don't see them trying to push all this young talent and pretending like us, older, I guess you could say older stars. I mean, I feel like for pro wrestler, I feel like 35 is not old. I mean, we've seen wrestlers, I feel like regardless of your gender, like we've seen wrestlers like stick with it, maybe not as frequently, but stick with it well into their 50s. Again, case in point, Goldberg. Case in point, like I know Kurt Angle. I think Kurt Angle, he's like retired now, but I know he came back. I think he had a match at one of the WrestleManias within the last 10 years. It was a tag team match with him and Ronda Rousey against Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. So even Triple H kind of came out of retirement. Now, really, with pro wrestling, there's no such thing as retirement. I know John Cena's doing his farewell tour, and he has promised the fans. He was at like a red carpet event, I think either last year or earlier this year, and he said how many wrestlers, they do the wrestler's retirement, where they retire, they go out on their back, and they disappear for like 5 years, but then they all of a sudden come back. Or in the case of, or I always use the example, Shawn Michaels literally lost to The Undertaker at WrestleMania 26 in 2010, went away for a year, came back WrestleMania 27 as a guest referee. WrestleMania 27 and 28, he came back as a guest referee, and I think stayed at WWE like on the business side. Like he's kept working behind the scenes, and now he's the owner of NXT. So yeah, typical wrestler's retirement. He even returned to the ring, I think, for like the Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia in like 2018. I think he came out of retirement along with Triple H. So I think John Cena is probably going to be the first wrestler to say like, last time is now. Like this year with his farewell tours, like after this you can't see me. The last time is now. My last Royal Rumble, last Elimination Chamber, last WrestleMania. There is no maybe next year. So I think John Cena is breaking that mold for sure. breaking that mold for sure. And unfortunately, he did not retain his undisputed WWE Championship to Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes took his championship back. If you remember, John Cena, he won the championship from Rhodes at WrestleMania 41 back in April. Rhodes, almost 4 months later, had to fight dirty a little bit to get to win his championship back. But you could tell that a bit of this heel Cena, like I thought maybe they were going to do a double turn. Like that's a term that I learned from, I think the YouTube channel was Wrestle Mafia, that said, like, will they do a double turn? Like, now that John Cena has turned heel, is Cody Rhodes gonna end up, is Cody Rhodes, who is a babyface, is he gonna end up turning heel? Because we're seeing like kind of a more rageful, more vengeful side of Cody. Is he gonna turn heel, which will then cause John Cena to turn face again, to go from heel, go from face, heel, and then back to face? Like, are they going to do that double turn? Which ultimately ended up not happening. John Cena, he's kind of turned face again. I think the way that Sam, the host of the Raw recap, he said how whatever spell The Rock had John Cena under, the spell is worn off, because it's almost like when you think you're getting a package from Amazon, but really it's from Temu. Yep. I know, potential sponsorship just gone. Though Amazon, though, just hit me up. We got to see John Cena pull out all the stops. That was such a great match. That's how you end night 2 of SummerSlam. I think that's how you end night 2. Got to go out with a bang, go out on a high note. Cody got his championship back, but then also we saw John Cena raising Cody Rhodes' hand. We see that mutual respect. We saw them like hug it out, and kind of shake hands before and after the match. Like, let's have, let's give them a clean match, and having that mutual trust, having that mutual trust, and realizing like it's just business. It's like that bell rings, I don't know you. It's like that bell rings, I don't know you, but let's go grab a beer afterwards. So, standing ovation. And then, of course, just like how we ended night 1 with Seth Rollins returning, night 2 ends with Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is returning, and I think before John Cena officially retires, before his last match this December, I think my prediction is, because I know we got Clash in Paris next week, and then I think the next PLE after that is Survivor Series. I think between Clash in Paris and Survivor Series, we're gonna see a John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. We have to. I think. But overall, not too bad for my very first SummerSlam. It's crazy. This is my first SummerSlam that I'm watching as a new fan 2.0. I'm just getting back into watching wrestling now at 24. But, that is all for, wrestling news. Last thing before we actually get into the intro for the title of this episode. I feel like I'm almost like catfishing you listeners by saying like, oh yeah, episode 99, To Kill a Mockingbird, movie review. But we're also gonna spend 30 minutes talking about pro wrestling and who and which celebrities have died. Hey, I gotta cover all the bases. I said Cobbs Corner is the one-stop shop for all things TV, film, and pop culture. Alright, guys? So yeah, give me a break. So since we last spoke, I've watched a couple of movies. I guess my movie recommendations are, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I'm not sure if that's in theaters anymore, but I think it might be streaming on Paramount Plus, or if not, it will be on Paramount Plus soon. Check out Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts is on Disney Plus now, so definitely go check out Thunderbolts. I think that was a solid entry for the MCU. Doing throwbacks. I had Prince of Egypt earlier this summer. I watched Prince of Egypt. That's like classic DreamWorks. Any and all Shrek movies. Shrek always a win. It's never a bad time to watch Shrek. It's always a good time to watch any of the Shrek movies, 1, 2, 3, or 4. I watched Wallace and Gromit. That's a good one as well. How to Train Your Dragon. I think that's one of my favorite movies of the year. I think it's one of the better live action remakes that we've gotten. Like I'm just so like exhausted. Like every time you hear about live action remakes, and really I was just done after Snow White. But I realized that DreamWorks is a different studio. DreamWorks is not Disney, and I want to say this is their first live action remake. I mean, How to Train Your Dragon came out in 2010, and here we are 15 years later. So I guess How to Train Your Dragon came out a long time ago. I guess that was a long time ago. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed that movie. Give it like I think on Letterboxd, my Letterboxd score says 5 stars. Wizard of Oz, I honestly gave that movie 3 stars, but I did do a whole episode on that. Psycho, 4.5 stars. Go back and listen to my Psycho episode. That's a really good one. The Graduate. I have watched The Graduate. I gave it 4 stars, but that is going to be a future episode of Cobbs Corner. Stay tuned for The Graduate. Fantastic Four: First Steps, best Marvel movie of 2025. It's the best. If you're not even super into like superhero movies, if you're not super into Marvel, if you don't really know where to start, because I know a lot of times the MCU, the interconnection between the movies and the shows, and I love how Marvel has kind of made that separation between Marvel Studios, the movies, Marvel Television, the TV, the Disney Plus series, and Marvel Animation, the cartoons. So they have those 3 different banners. And I guess there's also Marvel Spotlight, which I'm not sure what they're doing with that. But forget all that. Go watch Fantastic Four: First Steps. Go watch Fantastic Four: First Steps. Third time is a charm. Third time's a charm. I think I've told the story before on this podcast about how back in like 2018, 2019, when there were talks of Disney acquiring 20th Century Fox and doing another Fantastic Four movie, and I think the fan casting that I saw was Emily Blunt as Sue Storm and John Krasinski, her husband in real life, to play Mr. Fantastic, if I can barely speak. And I think that was that little cameo that we got in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I was on the fence about another go at the Fantastic Four, just because I had such a negative image in my mind after Fant Four Stick. Like, Fant Four Stick was just so bad, and I recommend that. I mean, that's a movie, like, I mean, watch it, I guess, if you want. But it's a one-time watch. I guess watch it so you can say that you watched it, but the movie is awful. The Fantastic Four movies from the 2000s are okay. They don't hold up super well today, but I think they were fun movies for that time period. So go back and watch those as well. Most recent movie on my Letterboxd is Training Day. Training Day. At some point, I would like to maybe, rank all of Denzel Washington's performances. I think Training Day is definitely top 5. I don't know if I would put it above Malcolm X, even though Training Day, he won an Oscar. Malcolm X, he should have won an Oscar. So yeah. But yeah, check out Training Day, and Denzel is also in the upcoming movie Highest to Lowest, a new Spike Lee film. So I'm definitely gonna be keeping my eye out for that one. Gonna try to see that one in theaters. But lastly, real quick, I'm going to go over my streaming recommendations for this week. Streaming recommendations for the 99th episode. I recommend you all go check out WWE Unreal on Netflix. That is streaming now on Netflix. It pulls back the curtain. It he's pretty much exposing like a lot of what goes on behind the scenes, how it's a really calculated and very specific, like very calculated, very coordinated production. Honestly, I think after watching WWE Unreal, nobody should ever say that wrestling isn't real, or that wrestling is fake, or that those are just a bunch of people pretending to beat each other up. No. And that's like and that's like a cardinal sin for like diehard, wrestling fans. I think there was a reporter that got like sucker punched back in the 90s for asking a wrestler, "Oh, well, this is all fake, right?" And then the guy just clocks him. It's like, "Did that feel fake?" So, and Washington Black. Check out Washington Black. It's a great period series. I think it's based on a book series. But check out Washington Black, man. That show, I still haven't finished it, but check out Washington Black. It's a great show. One of the best shows, at least from Hulu. It's one of the greatest Hulu shows of 2025. If you haven't watched it yet, what are you waiting for? All right. Now, to properly kick off the 99th episode of Cobbs Corner, all right. There's going to be an episode where I'm on camera and I'm not going to accidentally hit my microphone or knock it over. All right. That episode's coming, I promise. Introduction. A widowed lawyer in Depression-era Alabama defends a black man against a false rape charge while teaching his young children about the sad reality of prejudice. Storyline. In small-town Alabama in 1932. Correction, earlier in the intro I said 1933. It is actually 1932. Atticus Finch, played by Gregory Peck, is a lawyer and a widower. He has 2 young children, Jem and Scout. Atticus Finch is currently defending Tom Robinson, a black man accused of raping a white woman. Meanwhile, Jem and Scout are intrigued by their neighbors, the Radleys, in particular the mysterious, seldom-seen Boo Radley. Storyline provided to us by IMDb. The movie is directed by Academy Award nominated director Robert Mulligan. He's known for directing Love with the Proper Stranger in 1963, Summer of 42 in 1971, and The Other in 1972. The movie was co-written by Harper Lee, who actually wrote the book To Kill a Mockingbird, and Horton Foote, who is an Academy Award winning writer known for his work on Playhouse 90, the TV series Playhouse 90. He wrote 3 episodes. That show aired from 1958 to 1960. The movie Tender Mercies in 1983, and The Trip to Bountiful, 1985. The movie stars Academy Award winning director Gregory Peck as Atticus Finch. He's known for playing John Ballantyne in Spellbound, 1945, Joe Bradley in Roman Holiday, 1953, and Dr. Joseph Mengele in The Boys from Brazil, 1978. John Megna as Dill Harris. He's known for playing the little boy on the Star Trek TV series in 1966. So one episode role. He played Hooper on the TV show Policewoman, which aired from 1975 to 1977. He was on 4 episodes of that show. And he played Arthur Rose in The Cannonball Run, 1981. Lastly, the movie stars Frank Overton as Sheriff Heck Tate. He is known for playing Father O'Connors in The Last Mile, 1959, General Bogan in Failsafe, and Elias Sandalov on the original Star Trek TV series in 1967. He was only on 1 episode of that show. Without any further ado, let's go to Cobbs Corner. So as I said earlier, this movie is set in the Jim Crow South. It's set during the Great Depression. For those who don't know, the Great Depression, that was a period of American history, I want to say maybe started around 1929 with the stock market crash of 1929 and then lasted up until maybe the early 1940s, up until World War II. But this movie is set in the Jim Crow era South. This is a time of segregation. This was a time of, racism and prejudice, and this was a very, very, very different time in American culture. And these characters are based on Harper Lee's life growing up. Like, this movie is not like this book is the book itself is not considered an autobiography or semi-autobiographical by any means, but the characters are like loosely based on kind of the people that Harper Lee grew up with. And the book was published in the year of our Lord 1960, and then just 2 years later the movie was made. When I think of Tom Robinson, I think Tom Robinson and his case of him being falsely accused of raping a white woman, it is shades of the real life brutal murder. And I think most of us here in the United States have heard some version of the story of Emmett Till, and I think there's even like a series out about, and there's been series and documentaries about Emmett Till. For those of you who don't know, Emmett Till, he was a 14-year-old boy who, was from Chicago, and he went down south, I think, to visit his grandparents. And while he was in town one day, rumor has it, I'll say rumor has it, maybe even legend has it, because I'm sure that this story was fabricated. Rumor has it that he catcalled a white woman, and later that night, and then he went home later that night, and two white men busted into his house and took him out of his bed. His grandparents were powerless to stop these men, and that boy was never seen alive again. But in the words of Dave Chappelle, luckily for us, his mother was a gangster. All right, his mother demanded that they have an open casket funeral. She said the world needs to see, like, we got to do better. The world needs to see what they did to my baby. And that was the spark that lit the fire for what we now know as the Civil Rights Movement. We, as a nation, not even as a nation, but as foundational Black Americans, as FBAs, we said, enough is enough. We fought beautifully, and we fought the Civil Rights Movement beautifully. Brown versus Board of Education, Civil Rights Bill, Fair Housing Act, and then figures like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King are immortalized today through their works. And here we all are today. And I think that America, we have definitely made some progress since then, but we got work to do, and I'll get to that a little bit later in the episode. Lastly, this book reminds me of, and I don't know if Harper Lee really knew about, there was a case right here in my home state of Connecticut, and this is going back 85 years to the year 1940, where we had a young Thurgood Marshall. He defended Joseph Spell, who was if I'm not mistaken, there's a movie about it called Marshall with Chadwick Boseman, actually. Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P. And I saw it in theaters on a school trip, and it's based on a true story. It stars Josh Gad is Sterling K. Brown. Sterling K. Brown, he plays Joseph Spell, who is a driver, who's a chauffeur from New York, who was accused by a woman in Greenwich, Connecticut, if any of you are familiar with the Connecticut area, and accused by an upper class white woman. She accuses him of raping her and throwing her over throwing her, well, raping her, and then like tying her up and throwing her off a bridge. And so that's the whole premises of the movie. Of course, he's falsely accused of rape on the basis of his race, and so like the case of Tom Robinson, I think it's like echoes of those two real life cases of black men being falsely accused by white women, falsely accused by white women of rape, of SA. So yeah, I think To Kill a Mockingbird, this still goes on today. So just for a bit of context, I read this book when I was in high school, and I think that this book needs to be in every school's library. I'll say. In the opening scene, we're introduced to Scout and Jem and Dill and even Atticus, who the kids refer to as Atticus. They don't call him Dad in the film. And we're introduced to them, and we see a bit of the classism. We see how the Finches, they're a bit better off than some of the other families in that town. And the Finches, they even have a black house servant, Calpurnum. I guess she goes by Cal. And Calpurnia, who's played by Estelle Evans. And we see how, like, Jem and Scout, at least at first, they're very oblivious to the classism. They're very, not oblivious, I guess you could say they're a bit naive, I guess, to the classism and to the racism of that time. And they're they're very like unaware of the way that things are in this Jim Crow South, and their father, who is a lawyer. We see how there's a case that he ends up taking where he has to defend a man by the name of Tom Robinson. Now, Tom Robinson, he is a black male, maybe 20s or 30s, who's married, and I think he even had children of his own. He ends up being accused of falsely being accused of raping and abusing a white woman in this town. I can't think of her name, and it'll come to me. So he's wrongfully accused of raping this woman, Mayella Ewell. Mayella is her name, and that's the woman who he has been accused of raping. And despite the and despite all the insults, despite all of the sort of, Atticus Finch, all the dirty looks and the dirty comments that he's gotten from his white neighbors and from the folks who look like him, from his own community, they've been calling him, and I have to, of course, trigger warning. I feel like I should say content warning. This book deals with very, very serious topics. Like, if you don't like if you don't like the sensitive topics of racism and white supremacy, I've addressed it on this podcast, and I'm not going to shy away from the necessary language that is in not only the book but also the film. If that is not your thing, you have been warned. Atticus, he gets called a nigger lover, and essentially he's being accused of loving black people, which was again considered just being called a nigger lover at that time was considered an insult. Saying they're essentially saying like you're not one of us. That this man is that this man is guilty, and that he should be buried underneath the jail. But Atticus, as a lawyer, as a minister, of justice and of the law, he believes that everyone must get fair trial. And there's even a scene, I think, where Scout asks Atticus, like, why did he agree to defend Tom Robinson, and why does he continue to demand why does he insist on defending this man, despite everyone, despite what everybody else thinks about him because of it. And he says how you can never truly understand someone else's point of view. You never truly understand someone else's stance until you put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in their skin and crawl around a bit. Put yourself in their shoes, go walk a mile. Go walk a mile in their shoes. See things from the other person's perspective. So I think that's one of the main themes of this movie is empathy. And I'll get more to the themes later on. But yes, empathy, and Atticus being sort of, I guess you could say, objective in a way. Like he believes that justice is colorblind. He believes that the law is colorblind, and he even says this in his closing argument, that all men are created equal, and that this man is 100% innocent. We even see in the courtroom, we see how Atticus tosses a glass at Tom Robinson, and he catches it only with his right hand. And this is very, very important because Mayella, she claims that Tom Robinson had ended up raping her and abusing her, and ended up hitting her in her right eye. Now, her right eye would be like, if you were facing her, it would appear to be on her left side. It would appear to be on the left hand side if you're looking at her. So if you're looking at her, it'd be your left, but her right. Atticus threw the glass to Mr. Robinson. Mr. Robinson catches it. Robinson catches it with his right hand. Atticus tells him, "Why don't you try catching it with your left hand?" Robinson responds, "I can't. My left arm is deformed. I caught it in. It got caught in a cotton gin when I was like 12 years old or something." So Tom Robinson explains how he can't move. He's lost all function in his left arm. So it's impossible for him to have hit her on her right side using his left arm, because he can't even move his left arm. So between that and then Mayella's testimony, Mayella having holes in her testimony, it is clear that Tom Robinson is innocent. But, and I see parallels between this scene and the movie Chinatown, which I did in an earlier episode. Despite all the evidence, there is no poetic justice in the end. This jury of all white men, all right, I think it would work out very differently if Cal were a part of that jury. After the deliberation, they still end up saying that he's guilty. They still end up sentencing him to either the death penalty or to life in prison. I forget exactly what his prison sentence was. But the quintessential scene of this film is, of course, Atticus's closing argument. Where he goes on for like a full 7 minutes. I think the full clip is on YouTube. And he talks about how this man is innocent. He is entitled to a fair trial, and we have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that this man is innocent. But it was a miscarriage of justice that led to Tom Robinson being thrown in jail, and ultimately, after he tried to escape, he was killed. So I mean, that's like the main plot of the main plot of the movie, and then kind of the B plot is, of course, Boo Radley. There's the family, the Radleys, and how they're kind of reclusive. We don't see a whole lot of them, especially their son Boo, who there's all these rumors about how Boo Radley tried to kill his father, and then they ended up chaining Boo Radley up down at the courthouse in the basement, but then they had to just send him back home. And so all these things about Boo Radley, and then the kids would even like play around at Boo Radley's house, and what this movie reminded me of, what Boo Radley, he reminds me of, if you guys remember from the movie Home Alone, there was, I can't think of the character's name, but the old man who lived like up the street from Kevin, you know, when the old man, you know, he actually, you know, as soon as Kevin actually like meets with him in the church, and they actually start talking, and Kevin realizes that Kevin realizes that everything that's been said about this old man is false. And I think a similar scene takes place after the trial, when I think the character's name, I think it was like Bob Ewell. It was either Bob Ewell or I think it was Bob, who was a drunkard. You know, he ends up kind of coming after one night. I think it was Halloween. You know, Jem, Scout, and Dill are coming back from their church's Halloween pageant, and then Bob is coming after them, and he actually attacks these kids and tries to kill them, but then it's all of a sudden it's Boo Radley, who nobody has seen or heard from. He's the one who ends up rescuing the kids, and they get home safely. Jem ends up in bed. I mean, he's okay, but he ends up getting injured, and they end up having to call the doctor, but he ends up just fine. And ultimately it was Boo Radley who had finally come out of hiding and ends up stabbing Bob. But what Judge Taylor says instead is that then what Judge Taylor ends up saying instead is that Bob fell on his own knife. And so essentially we see how there was a miscarriage of justice earlier that got Tom Robinson in jail in the first place, but now there's technically another miscarriage of justice by the judge saying, you know what, hey, the official story is Bob fell on his own knife. Boo Radley is the hero in the end, but really I would say that both Boo Radley and also Scout and Tom Robinson are all the Mockingbird. They're the Mockingbird that is referred to in the title of To Kill a Mockingbird, which I opened up the episode with the quote, "It's a sin to kill a mockingbird." But here's the exact quote from the books, courtesy of Spark Notes. "Shoot all the blue jays you want, if you can hit them. But remember, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird." This is Atticus talking to Jem, I think, because I think the context was Jem wanted a gun, and then Atticus is like talking to Jem about, you know, guns and how, like, oh, if you have a gun, you know, you can use it on whatever you want, but don't shoot a mockingbird. Knowing that Jem and Scout will most likely use their air rifles to shoot at birds rather than tin cans as he's requested, Atticus admonishes them to avoid killing mockingbirds. This is the first time mockingbirds are mentioned in the novel, although the mockingbird is only mentioned a few times in the story. Its symbolic meaning, something innocent and harmless that doesn't deserve to be punished or hurt in any way, pervades the novel. Both Tom Robinson and Boo Radley are associated with the symbol, and the children embrace its figurative power. Mockingbirds don't do one thing but make music for us to enjoy. They don't eat up people's gardens, don't nest in corn cribs. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. That's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. So, the aforementioned mockingbird is Tom Robinson. You know, Tom Robinson was a man who was clearly innocent, and even from his testimony, he was trying to help her. She needed help, lifting some boxes, or that he actually took pity on her. He took pity on her. He felt bad for her. He was trying to be the good guy. All right. And Boo Radley, he never hurt anybody. You know, he wouldn't hurt a fly. And I mean, he even saved Jem and Scout and Dill's life. Not for Boo Radley, then they probably, you know, would have actually either gotten killed or gotten injured. Something bad would have happened if not for Boo Radley. You know, so Boo Radley is the mockingbird, and Scout is also the mockingbird, I would say. You know, Scout is the mockingbird because she is the innocent child in this whole story. She's the protagonist, but she is also the innocent one. She is the one just living amongst the racism and the prejudice and the hate, and she did not deserve to have, you know, Bob come after her the way that he did. You know, she did not deserve to have all the negative comments from kids and the dirty looks from kids at school. And, you know, she's truly the innocent party in all this, just caught in the crossfires. So she is the mockingbird, as is Tom Robinson, as is Boo Radley, as was Emmett Till, as was, and let me get his name right, as was Joseph Spell, as was Trayvon Martin, as was Tamir Rice, as was Freddie Gray, as was George Floyd, as was Eric Gardner. I could go on and on. This book is mandatory reading. Is and should be mandatory reading in every high school, every middle school, maybe even as early as middle school. Every middle school, every high school in America needs to teach this book. Every film class needs to watch this movie. Because the state of the world right now, and, you know, the state of, not even the world, the state of the United States of America, the state of this country right now, all right? And I know this, and I know on this podcast, you know, I'll talk about social issues. I will stay out of the politics. I'm not here to, you know, debate over, you know, who the president is now, and, you know, whether or not, you know, who voted for who. Not my place. But it is up to us. It's up to the American people as to whether or not we want to leave behind a better world, leave this country better than we found it, leave it better for our children and for our children's children. And it honestly pisses me off when I hear about books like To Kill a Mockingbird and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and Gone with the Wind being like banned from schools, and, you know, oh, we don't want to teach racism, like, oh, my kids shouldn't feel guilty about something that our ancestors did 200 years ago. You know, like, give me a break. I mean, it's all BS. You see, those who don't know their history are destined to repeat it. So I think that, movies like To Kill a Mockingbird, books and, well, not just the movies, but the books that they're based on need to be taught and need to be kept in circulation in our libraries. Because my worry is that it's not going to stop at schools. Is that there's going to be such hypersensitivity. It's going to be such, don't talk about, this topic or that topic, or when you got guys like Morgan Freeman in interviews. I think he said in an interview back in like 2010 that the cure to racism, the cure to white supremacy is stop talking about it. Like, no. That's how you become numb to the issues. That's how you avoid, like, by avoiding the conversation. Better prop setup. By avoiding the conversation, that doesn't cause the problem to just go away. You see, that, if anything, that makes the problem bigger, because you see, it's like a it's almost like a shadow or like a picture. You run away from it, or like a mural on a wall, like if you get that analogy. You run away from something, the larger it becomes, the more difficult it looks, the bigger it looks. All right, looks like a huge, giant, whether if it's like a hill or a mountain, it looks huge from a distance. But when you take one step closer, you get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, it starts to look smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It starts to look less and less like a huge problem. I mean, there's a saying, like, how you eat an elephant one piece at a time. And, I'm gonna quote, I think the rapper's name is Lil Baby. He has this song, I forget the name of the song, but like in the chorus he says, like, it's bigger than black and white. It's a problem with the whole way of life. It can't change overnight, but we gotta start somewhere. Might as well go ahead and start here. We done had a hell of a year. God is the only man I fear. I couldn't have said it better myself. When the government, ceases to push, whether it's the government or the education system, when these systems fail us, it is on us, the American people, to learn from our history. You take, books and movies off the shelves, whether if it's in schools, like it's in schools right now, but my worry is that it's going to spread to libraries and bookstores. They're going to start to take these books off the shelves. Barnes & Noble's going to say, oh no, we don't want to sell, To Kill a Mockingbird. We don't want to sell Gone with the Wind. We don't want to sell, we don't want to sell The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, or The Crucible or The Scarlet Letter, because these books are problematic and, racism. So yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before it spreads into the rest of society. And that's why I felt it was necessary for me to do this episode. And I got Gone with the Wind coming soon. But I think that knowledge is power. I implore you all to watch this movie, read the book while we still can, because, again, maybe I'm just being paranoid, but maybe the day will come where they take these movies off of streaming services. Where they try to rewrite history. They try to erase all traces of To Kill a Mockingbird. Where they try to erase all traces of the autobiography of Malcolm X. It's like, oh, we don't want, racist ideals, or we don't want to be reminded of our history. And I think America, we are a nation that is in need of that honest man in the mirror conversation. We've seen other countries have turned things around. You look at, Imperial Japan, Japan, they had a whole reconstruction period post World War II after the atomic bombs were dropped and Imperial Japan surrendered. Today, Japan, they are a democracy, and I hear out there it is almost impossible to get your hand on a firearm out there. It's like a whole processes upon processes. But they're generally a pretty peaceful country. Germany, they had that honest conversation with themselves about Adolf Hitler and about the Holocaust, about World War II. You don't see in Germany, you don't see them trying to ban books like Schindler's Ark, which Steven Spielberg then adapted into Schindler's List. You don't see them trying to ban Night by Elie Wiesel or Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. Those are both books that I had the privilege of reading in high school. You don't see them trying to ban books and movies that expose their very, very problematic history. And they're a nation that has had that honest conversation about who they were, during the Weimar Republic, and then during Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime. They've had that honest conversation, and they've been able to reform their image and move forward as a nation, that is a friend to all, and been able to move forward as a democracy and to actually change for good. And now, like I've heard, and if anyone is listening to this podcast from Germany, from Deutschland, hello. But I've heard that in Germany it's illegal to goose step. It's illegal to give the Nazi salute. It's illegal. You'll be arrested. Like, that's how serious they are about not going backwards. I think the only way for America to progress is for America to have an honest conversation about who she is, how she came to be, all right, what she has done to the one group of people that is the most loyal, the most ride or die, the most patriotic group of people on this planet, and that is foundational Black Americans. All right? Foundational Black Americans, those of us who, our ancestors built this country for free, built the White House for free. We, in the midst of all the nonsense, all the chaos that we have been through from 1619 till now, and everything, all the turmoil that America has been through, every armed conflict, we are on the front lines. Foundational Black Americans, this nation would not exist without us. We have always gotten the shorter end of the stick. Always. And I think this movie, this novel and film, are proof of that. They are a reflection of that. Life inspires art. And I think that, this piece of art, as I'm pointing to the DVD, this piece of art, all right, needs to be watched, needs to be reviewed, needs to be analyzed. It's so necessary. If there are any, local government officials, state government officials, I implore you, do not take this book out of schools. This is a book that needs to be taught. All right. Every teenager needs to read this book, because it's up to us what kind of nation we want to be, what kind of nation we want to leave behind for our kids and our grandkids to inherit. That is up to us. It's up to the American people. Nobody else. It's up to the people. So I mean, I guess that's all I got for, to kill for this summary and analysis of To Kill a Mockingbird. On to To Kill a Mockingbird Plus. So this movie won 3 Oscars with a total of 14 award wins and 16 nominations. First off, Alan J. Pakula was nominated for Best Picture. This movie was nominated for Best Picture. It lost to Lawrence of Arabia, which also came out in 1962 and is number 7 on the AFI Top 100. Gregory Peck won the Oscar for Best Actor in a Leading Role at the 1963 Academy Awards. Mary Badham was nominated for Best Actress in a Supporting Role. Mary Badham, who played... Who did she play? Scout. Yes, for the role of Scout, she was nominated for the Oscar of Best Actress in a Supporting Role, but she lost to Patty Duke in The Miracle Worker. Robert Mulligan was nominated for Best Director, but he lost to David Lean for directing Lawrence of Arabia. So yeah, Lawrence of Arabia is... that episode is coming. So stay tuned for that. Horton Foote won the Oscar for Best Writing Screenplay based on material from another medium. Horton Foote was not present at the award ceremony. Alan J. Pakula, the film's producer, accepted the award on his behalf. Russell Harlan was nominated for Best Cinematography in Black and White, but lost to Gene Borgen, Walter Waditz, and Henry Person for their work on The Longest Day in 1962. Alexander Galitzin, Henry Bumstead, and Oliver Emmert won the Oscar for Best Art Direction, Set Direction in Black and White. And lastly, Elmer Bernstein was nominated for Best Musical Score, Substantially Original. I do not have who he lost to, though. On to the trivia. Gregory Peck's summation speech, which runs for 6 minutes and 30 seconds, was nailed in a single take. That is that is commitment. That is, you could tell. Like, I would honestly put that speech maybe on par with James Stewart's speech in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Mary Badham, Scout, and Gregory Peck, Atticus, became close during filming and kept in contact for the rest of his life. Peck always called her Scout, her character role, while Badham called Peck Atticus. It's a bit of method acting / it's like, you're always going to be this role to me. Kind of a friendship that the two of them had. Brock Peters, who played Tom Robinson in the film, delivered Gregory Peck's eulogy on the date of his funeral and burial, Monday, June 16th, 2003. All right. Big ups to Brock Peters. After being offered the role of Atticus Finch, Gregory Peck quickly read Harper Lee's novel in one sitting and called director Mulligan immediately afterwards to say that he would gladly play it. That's commitment. Reading a whole novel in one sitting, I've never done that. The first scene that Gregory Peck shot showed him returning home from his character's law office, while his children ran to greet him. Author Harper Lee was a guest on set that day, and Peck noticed her crying after the scene was filmed. He asked Lee why she was crying, and she responded that Peck had looked just like her late father, the model for Atticus. Lee explained that Peck even had a little round stomach like her father's. "That's not a pot belly, Harper," Peck told her. "That's great acting." Yeah, again, life inspires art, and sometimes when you see your art on display, you Can't help but shed a tear. It's okay. It is okay. Sometimes you gotta let it out. User review. One of the most important films of all time. 10 out of 10 stars. To Kill a Mockingbird is the movie based on the Harper Lee novel of the same name about Scout, Jem, and their father, Atticus Finch, who is an attorney in a small southern town. It is both a coming-of-age story about the children, as well as a hard-hitting drama, as Atticus Finch defends a black man who is on trial for the rape of a white woman. This review is not an easy one to write, despite the fact that I have seen the film at least 10 times. The reason it does not come easily is that this is one of the most personally important films I've ever seen and is in my personal top 5 of all time. I'm certain there is nothing that can be said about the film that has not already been repeated a multitude of times, so I guess the best thing to do is explain why the film is so important to me. I first saw this film several years ago and was so profoundly affected by it that I immediately watched it again. Of course, the defense of a man wrongly accused of a crime is a common storyline, but To Kill a Mockingbird stands out as an exceptional example for several reasons. Among them, the date that the film was released, 1962, on the cusp of the civil rights movement in America, and the fact that it takes place in the South in the 1930s. It is also far from the first time to explore the experiences of children and their own personal growth. But To Kill a Mockingbird stands out because of its sheer honesty and natural performances by the child actors portraying these rich characters. But most of all, this film is special because of Gregory Peck's portrayal of Atticus Finch, a true hero. At risk of sounding historianic, my heart aches when I watch him on screen because he is such an incredible man and is so inherently good. No matter how many times I have seen this film, I smile when I see his interaction with his children, and I well with tears when I see his incredible strength of character. No easy feat to break through the armor of this cynical film geek who, if given the chance, would remake at least a few dozen films with tragic endings. I was sitting in my car listening to National Public Radio recently, the day Gregory Peck died, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I sat and cried hearing the retrospective they offered, mainly because the man who portrayed my own personal cinematic hero was gone, but also because Peck lived his life with the same conviction as his best-known role, a fact that makes Atticus Finch all the more tangible. The American Film Institute recently named Atticus Finch the #1 hero of all time, a choice I consider both brave and insightful in an age where our heroes generally either wield weapons or have superhuman physical strength. Atticus Finch fights evil as well, but with his strong moral fiber and his mind. To Kill a Mockingbird is generally required reading during the course of one's education. If you have not read it, do so. If you have not seen the film, do so, and share it with others. It is an exceptional film that stands the test of time and will remain an important addition to film history for as long as the genre exists. This signed Shelley. This review was provided to us from IMDb, from user Film Otaku, on November 8th, 2003. If you remember earlier in the trivia, we had said how Gregory Peck died in June of 2003, so this was a few months later. I've heard that Atticus Finch is on the AFI's list of like top 100 like greatest movie heroes of all time. I think they have a heroes list, and then they also have a villains list, so I'll have to take a look at those. But I'm sure, I mean, if this movie's on the AFI top 100, it's number 25. It's they just made the top 25, the top quarter of the list. So I can only imagine what other film heroes are on that list, especially if Atticus Finch is number 1 on the list. So, but yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you haven't read the book, read it. If you haven't seen the movie, watch it. Share it with others. It needs to be shared. And right now is the best time to do it. We literally have access to streaming services. Got access to the internet, social media, streaming services. None of this existed in 1962. Like, right now is the best time to watch, and like really right now is the golden age of, I won't say the golden age of film, but right now is the best time for us to watch these films and talk about them and share them and review them, laugh about them, say what our favorite parts are. Right now is the best time to have this discourse, to have this discussion, and it's necessary. It's necessary, and I think To Kill a Mockingbird, taking a second look at this book, this is how we open up that conversation about equity and about racial equality, and have that honest and open conversation about white supremacy and the history of white supremacy in the United States of America. All right. With this movie, and even also do the Right Thing, which I did a couple episodes ago. All right. With these, with those two movies, and there's going to be a ton more to add, I am on a mission to fight for the soul of the United States of America. All right. Soul of this nation. IMDb rating 8.3 out of 10 stars. I agree. I'd maybe give it an 8 out of 10. Letterboxd score 4.1 out of 5 stars. I agree. Definitely 4.1 out of 5. I'd maybe give it a 4.2 or 4.3 out of 5. But release date from IMDb, March 16th, 1963 in the United States. I'm pretty sure that's inaccurate. I think the other release date that I saw was Christmas. I think like Christmas 1962. So, oh well, now according to Google it says February 14th, 1963. So yeah, it's like, it varies, I'm sure. Country of origin, United States. This is an American film on the AFI Top 100. Language, English. This is, I think, one of the few movies that we've had, because I think the past couple of movies have been, like, sure, English is the primary language, that's the majority of the film, but then you also hear maybe some Spanish, some Portuguese, some Italian, but nope, this movie's entirely in English. Also known as Matar a un Ruiseñor. That's the Argentina title. I'm not sure what that translates to in Spanish. Filming locations: Monroeville, Alabama, USA. Get your tickets now. Monroeville, Alabama. Production companies: Bakula, Mulligan, and Brentwood Productions. I know this movie was released by Universal Studios, or as it was known at the time, Universal International Studios. So the movie had an estimated budget of $2 million, which translates to about $21.3 million in 2025. Its gross domestic box office haul was $592,237, which translates to about $6.3 million in today's money. Its gross worldwide box office was $602,810, which again equates to about $6.4 million in today's money. The box office wasn't that big of a thing at that time. You could go to the movies for like a quarter back then. So, Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter and audience scores are the same at 93%. Solid rating. I completely agree. Critics' consensus: To Kill a Mockingbird is a textbook example of a message movie done right. Sober-minded and earnest, but never letting its social conscience get in the way of gripping drama. For sure. Yep, this movie. Yep. It's the message and the social consciousness. It never takes away from a good story. It never takes away from the story itself, which I like. Where can you watch To Kill a Mockingbird? You can rent or buy To Kill a Mockingbird on Fandango at home. It's also available on Prime Video, YouTube, Google Play, Apple TV, I'm sure. But you know me, I am old-fashioned. I'm Still living in 2005. I got my To Kill a Mockingbird collector's edition. This is the collector's edition that was released, I think, for Universal's 100th anniversary, which I want to say Universal's 100th anniversary was like 2012 or 2013, because that was when they redesigned their logo. So around that time was when the collector's edition. So I got the collector's edition courtesy of FYE, keeping y'all's doors open forever, because physical media. Yeah, I'm gonna need to have physical media before they take these. Yeah, telling y'all, stock up on your DVD game, your DVD and Blu-ray game, because you never know with these streaming services. They're probably about to take all these problematic films off one day. I'm just saying, they're gonna get Thanos. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a conspiracy theorist. Who knows? I mean, who knows? I just talk about movies all day. What do I know? That is all for today's review of To Kill a Mockingbird. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to give this podcast a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And feel free to leave this podcast a written review on Apple Podcasts as well. Drop me a line in the comments. Let me know what you thought about today's episode. Let me know what you thought about the movie itself. To my YouTube audience, make sure that you guys like this video and share it. Subscribe to the channel and click that bell so you get notified whenever I upload new episodes. If you want to stay up to date on all things Cobbs Corner, follow me on Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, and TikTok. All that information is in the show notes below. If you made it to the end of this episode, I greatly appreciate it. Click the video on your screen right now to listen to my review of Psycho. And as always, I will talk to all of you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed your stay here at Cobbs Corner. This is Morgan Cobbs signing off, reminding you that it is a sin to kill a mockingbird. Peace.